that was the other thing. I would see these documentaries of the civil rights movement, and um, people would go to these places, and all we would see as kids, they would show us this stuff in school. Our people getting hosed down and dogs, chewing them
Mm-hmm.
up and rocks being thrown at them. But most of that, not all of that, but most of that was because they were going to these places that they were told to not go to. Why were they doing what was your looking at it now, why do you think that they were doing that?
Because they were not being treated right. They were told you have to go in the back door. Why should they have to go in the back door when white people can go in the front door? And they were being tired of being second considered second class citizens.
Mm,
And they're in America. Their money's green, not black. They're more than willing to take their money, as they had to go in the back door. If they were a housekeeper, they had to go in the back door. So they were treated like trash.
mm,
And what really opened their eyes was when the boycott of the buses, that let them know they needed black people. They needed black people's money. And so that influenced the fact that, okay, we have to stop this Jim Crow, or a lot of businesses will go out of business. And so black people needed the businesses that were there, but they were being treated, you know, disrespectful. So they needed that business, but yet they were told, and then if they did want their own businesses, they were denied loans.
mm.
So to buy your own building or to start your own business from a build, okay, I love this. John Johnson, when he bought the Ebony Building in Chicago,
Hmm.
he had to dress up as a janitor,
Yep, I remember.
right?
Hmm.
And act like he worked there in order to just see the building that he is about to buy.
Mm,
And his lawyer was the one who was fronting for him. But if he didn't do that, they would have said, no, we're not showing
right,
you the building.
right.
So that's what they had to deal with. Black people did try to get their own, but they were always told, no, we're not going to show you the building. No, we're not going to give you a patent. Your lawyer will have to do it for you. And some people stole their
Mm,
patents because it
right,
was in their name,
right,
the lawyer's name. So it wasn't the fact of, why don't you just get your own and stop, shopping at Woolworths
right,
and forcing white
right,
people to like you.
right.
They did try to get their own.
Okay. And see, and that's one thing I always try to figure it out, because you would hear about the Reconstruction era. Have you heard about that era?
No.
So the Reconstruction era supposed to be um an era of right after the Civil War. Now, they like to say they, meaning a lot of white people and a lot of black people, but it doesn't matter. The theory goes that the Civil War was based off of slavery. But when you look into the records and you read up on census records, a lot of our people had our own stuff down
Yeah.
south, right? Also up north. But it was more than slavery. My belief was land. And if you notice how the whole Civil War was portrayed, it was South and North, and it was Confederate and Union. And what happened? The Confederate lost, so they say, and the
Hmm.
Union won, which is now we know as the United States. So it's land, right? Because if the South was Confederate and the North was Union, so when you read into the history, you're going to find out a lot of things are just not making sense from what we were told. So fast forward, after the Civil War, it was the Emancipation Proclamation. He frees the slaves, so called, but there were white people who were indentured servants as well down south. No one talks about the white people, but there were people who were on this form of a contract who were told to, your debt is paid, you're done. You don't need to be forced to work anymore. Now you're free. You're free to do whatever you want. And they were promised land. They were promised a lot of things. Black people were told that they were promised a bunch of land and, well, mainly land and just acres of land to do whatever they wanted to do. That didn't really happen. The
Mhm.
Reconstruction era came, and all of a sudden, I think it was like a couple of years after.
Not yet.
It was a couple of years after the Reconstruction era. Then had a bunch of melanated, copper colored people who became part of the government,
Mhm.
politicians, not the president, but U.S. senators, mayors, governors, all of that. And so around that time, that's when you would hear the term Black Wall Street. Black
Right.
Wall Street was supposed to be this one particular area of the South that said that, oh, this whole area was black people working. But that's not true, because you told me Boston, downtown, was known for black people. Downtown, all the way up to the South End.
Mhm.
Um, and I looked into that even more. And I don't know if you heard of the restaurant Slade's.
Yes.
Okay, so Slade is owned by a black man. Renner Slade was
Mhm.
his name. He died in 1950, I think, but his kids ended up taking it in. But I found out, I looked into Slade's and found out that his he had four businesses. He came
Mhm.
up from up north, from North Carolina. He had a business on Tremont Street, which is where the business is right now, in Roxbury. And then he had a business on Humboldt Ave. He had another, I forgot where the other one was, but come to find out, he also had one in Weymouth.
Mm.
And Weymouth was at that time predominantly white,
Mhm.
around the 40s and 50s. He was
Yeah.
able to open up four restaurants. He also had a farm in Abington, which is right next door to Brockton.
Wow.
And so they were saying that, he was living a, what's the word, living beyond his means or something. Like he was doing more than what he can afford the time to do.
Mhm.
But he was bringing in the money, but then eventually he wasn't able to keep up with the expenses, and the time to do what, to make the food and do all of that. So he ended up, all the businesses end up going away, except that one on Tremont Street. But I found out that a lot of black people did live downtown, Beacon Hill.
Yes, but it wasn't prominent the way it is today.
Well, there is no today because we're not down there.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is it wasn't a business district the way it is today.
I don't know, right?
It was just a residential area.
Right, but
That's
still,
all.
when you check out what the residential area is now worth, we're talking, you know, two, three building, 2, 3 bedroom for
Mhm.
$2 to $6 million down there.
Oh no, it's higher than that.
Well, that's what I'm just giving you a number,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But back then, late 1800s, there was a lot of black people who lived down there. I didn't say they owned businesses down there. I'm just saying they lived down
Oh,
there,
okay.
right?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
eventually they got moved up towards Dorchester and
Yes.
Mattapan, because we weren't even living out there at that time. It was Jewish people.
Jewish people were in Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester, Hyde Park, that whole area.
And then they got moved when we got moved.
Well, they didn't. They moved themselves because the area was becoming predominantly black.
So they got moved out. Because they could have stayed, but they
Yeah, they
didn't,
could have stayed.
right? But they
Mhm.
didn't. So they ended up moving.
A few stayed.
Probably.
A few did stay.
But, it's to see where downtown Boston is now and to see how it is, you would never think that there were black people living down there at one point in time.
Mhm.
And I feel like sometimes they hide that story, and instead of them saying that we were living down there, they would like to call us African, and we're not African. And I just want to say this one last, I have two more questions. Hearing the terms colored, black, Negro, African American, what is a term that you prefer or you are comfortable with, that you know that you like to be called right now?
American.
American. And when you guys started hearing the term African American, what was the chit chat going on around that?
It was so stupid because Jesse Jackson from what I heard,
Hmm.
was the one who said that's the term we should be coined now. Who gave him the right to say we all agree to that?
Right.
Who is making these decisions
Right.
that okay, now you will be called colored, now you will be called negro, now you will be called black. Oh, now you're African American. I'm not from Africa.
Right.
So just call me an
Just an
American.
American.
Why are we, separated by this race thing?
Right. And I think it's a little bit more deeper than that, but I noticed that they've called us African for a very long time because most of the time, based off of historical facts, they didn't know that black people were Indians. So if you look downtown Boston, they have what you call the Freedom Trail.
Right.
And what they like to call the Freedom Trail, they also like to call it the African American Trail. But typically, those areas are the areas of where the Indians were hiding to or
Excuse
running
me.
to escape slavery.
Mm.
They wouldn't tell you that they were enslaving Indians. They would tell you that they were enslaving Africans. And Africa is a continent with
Right.
multiple races as well. No one likes to talk about that.